Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourselves can free our mind. By opening your mind to your true history, you start feeling limitless. Wisdom is better than silver and gold. Wisdom, once you share it, magnifies itself, which is you for sharing it.
Everybody on the planet comes from, there is a single gene pool for the human race. There is only one race.
The division has been actually made.
Manufactured. Anybody who's denigrating an African is displaying some strange form of self-hatred.
Until the lion learns to write, tales of the hunt shall glorify the hunter. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today spending high quality time with a great African, a great human being who did the path all the way back to the motherland, to the cradle of mankind, and who have been around the world and have elected home whence he actually came from. Return to the sources. And that person here with me is His Royal Highness Sir Meredith Beal, who had the courtesy to spend a bit of time with us and share his wisdom and his story, which I'm sure will be of great interest to many people, not only on the continent but around the world. So,
Thank you, my brother. Asante Sana.
Karibu Sana.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. We've talked before, but night before last, I got an opportunity to come to Ubuntu Tribe's event, which was a very powerful instantiation of the way forward for our people. And I was very impressed with that whole movement. And when I followed up to see what you guys are about in terms of democratizing gold and liberating the African world community from the bonds of mental slavery and financial slavery, I'm just overjoyed at being able to talk with you and continue our dialogue.
You know, what you just said about mental slavery reminds me of this song of Bob Marley, which is one of my favorite songs, that says, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourselves can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energy. Look, it can stop the time." So, on those words, you see, I'm getting goosebumps just calling the ancestry and the magic of King Bob. I wanted you, you know, you were there at our launch here in Nairobi for Ubuntu Tribe, and former minister of mine mentioned about Africa and its minerals, that Africa estimated mineral resources is like close to 150 trillion, while our GDP is 4 trillion, but also indicating that only 15% of our resources has actually been
Has been identified so far.
identified. So it's probably much more. We might be close to
Probably much more.
1 quadrillion at least, right? And it shows how Mother Africa is wealthy, right? How the cradle of mankind is underestimated, unknown, and in that context, also how it's been pillaged, it's been vilified and disrespected in many ways. While most people forget that there is no human being on the planet who doesn't have its roots on the continent. What is your take on that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we could start at the beginning, the mother of humanity, the brilliant multi-genius Senegalese Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop proved to the scientific world that everybody on the planet comes from, there is a single gene pool for the human race. There is only one race. The idea of races is an aberration, but there's one gene pool for the entire body of humanity. Any human being in this world, wherever you are, if you go far back up enough through your family tree, you will eventually encounter an African great grandmother. And in my opinion, I've been
That's
trying.
the Eve gene.
Yes. So, in my opinion, anybody who's denigrating an African is displaying some strange form of self-hatred. I mean, how can you hate a grandmother that you never met who's responsible for you being here? And so it really started to explain to me this confusion that we have all around. But you know, the work that Sheikh Anta Diop did. Now, all Black people should be studying Dr. Sheikh Anta
Anti-Diop.
Diop. You
Yeah.
go to YouTube, type in his name. There's lectures.
And let me spell his name for you guys. CHIKH space ANTA space DIOP. My story started with him. Please carry on.
Yeah, so he is the father to many of brilliant African scholars, because he is the guy who proved to the science, all the European scientists who were claiming that Egypt was not black. He said, if you give me some pigment from one of the mummies, I can prove it. He did that, and after that, they cut off access to the information.
Indeed, he was a brilliant Egyptologist and the first one who defied the spread, transformed, erased history of Africa and its roots. He would even demonstrate that Wolof in Senegal, all the way at 4,000 kilometers, as a language, was directly derived from ancient Kemetic, ancient Egyptian language. And very interestingly, as you mentioned, even in my village in Cameroon, the Ba Milike, which is Ba, which is linked to the Ba, right? In Egypt, you have the Ka, the Ba, etc., right? We, at the entrance of the chieftaincy and villages, you would always have a pyramid because my people, from my mom's side, remembered their ancient origin to ancient Egypt. And it's powerful what you're saying, because I'll share my personal story. You were referring to those mental freedom weekend. We'll come back to it. And I attended one day. I was 16 and I was in this very special school in Paris where they never taught us any of that, right? So they would teach us our ancestors, the Gaulois, I don't know how you say that in English, which literally started, 1,500 or 600 years ago, right? And then I realized that no, those are not my ancestors, right? And Sheikh Anta Diop explains, right, with carbon-14, all those fully scientifically. And a friend of mine invited me to those mini gatherings where my eyes went wide open. And I said, we've been negated our contribution to the universal human civilization for centuries. And luckily, some have gone against the grain. Not just him, but you also, to kind of go back into understanding. And what changed it, for me, what it changes was from that moment onwards, I committed the rest of my life towards people emancipation and enlightenment, because I understood that if you're psychologically limited on your actual potential as a human because you've been made to believe that you are limited, then you won't go beyond those limits. But by opening your mind to your true history and the contribution of your lineage, of your ancestors, to what we experience today, then you start feeling limitless. And through that responsibility to bring that sense of limitless by first allowing people to escape the poverty trap, to escape the debt trap, so that they can financially achieve financial freedom and go up the Maslow pyramid to achieve self-realization. And when I look at you and see how the path you've gone, because you've gone full circle, tell me more about that.
Well, again, going back to Dr. Diop, who was an archaeologist, a biochemist, multi genius. But some of his most important work was looking at the impact of the environment on your value system. and he talked about the difference between ice cultures and sun cultures. And ice culture, where you're looking at the Nordic races, the Vikings and the Vandals, even the word vandalism, that came from a tribe called the Vandals. They went around destroying
Yes,
stuff.
indeed.
And so he was saying that if you come up in an ice culture and the harvest period is very short, you have to hold on to what you have until the next harvest season. And that develops a value system based on materialism. How much wheat, how many cows, how many, what you have. And it also develops a hoarding nature. And when you contrast that to people who come up in the sun culture, in the tropics, food is growing everywhere, so you have a sharing nature. And then he talks about the class of civilizations. When a hoarding culture meets a sharing culture, what's happened? It's like when Mimi Me kid meets a sharing kid, the Mimi Me kid winds up with all the toys. So when the Europeans arrived in North America, the indigenous population helped them. They almost starved because they didn't know when to plant. So they taught them how to plant. They shared the hunting grounds. Then a few seasons go by, the indigenous people come and the hunting ground has a fence around it. It's like, what is this? We bought it. What is bought? How do you buy the sky, the river? What are you talking about? So that's a class of cultures.
And what is interesting is that what you just described is actually Ubuntu from a philosophy and a state of mind point of view. When you say I am because we are, and it's actually the pure heritage of the sun culture, where nature gave us everything in abundance without the season and scarcity, that from a mindset point of view, it belongs to all of us. And we are one as people, right? And where it becomes very interesting, and I'll speak briefly about Ubuntu, right? What is interesting is that it comes, if you do the etymology of the word, it says Abba Netu, right? And Abba is actually, you even find it in Arabic, in Aramaic, in all those ancient languages, which means from, son of, descendant of, created by, right? Netu actually comes from the ancient Kemetic, which are the Neterus, right? And the Neterus in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, which is the original name of Egypt, which was at the time Egypt, Sudan, and a part of Ethiopia and Somalia, right? Means the Neteru are the gods. And the gods, actually, each of them represent one element of nature, Ra, the sun, right? You have Mut, right, which is literally Mother Earth, like the universe as it is, right? And Nut, which is the cosmos, all that together. So what it says is that Abba Netu means we are the divine creations of the gods. And as such, right, we should call upon the divine in us in how we interact with one another.
Absolutely.
And the children of the sun, as you call them, and as Sheikh Antadia pointed, where it's powerful is that we actually experimenting this transition today. And I'll tell you why. Is because the whole socioeconomic system was based, and thank you for bringing that to light, on the ice culture, which was started in the 18th century, 19 expanded, which is an economy based on scarcity, right? Indeed, you have season and you have only, and then everything is, there's not enough for everyone. We're going to have to fight or kill to make sure that we survive. It's based on a survival mindset where literally it's a zero-sum game. For me to gain, to win, you have to lose. And if that culture is ingrained, indeed, because your environment has made you into taking away a big chunk of the human in you to kind of call upon your own survival, which is a lower frequency or density or energetic kind of element, calling a fight or flight kind of mindset. That's why today, when the European came, right, we were Ubuntu. You human like us, we're going to share with you because we don't know other way, right? But if your culture, it's not that you're bad or not as good. No, it's just that you are conditioned for that your survival depends on my elimination. or of taking what belongs to me, because you don't know if you'll still have it tomorrow. And that's where the clash happened. It was a clash of culture. It was a clash of civilization. And what we're calling upon, and that's why I love that Ubuntu in you, right? And we'll talk about your story, is that call from our ancestors, that call from our very origin, are saying, okay, actually, we are a divine creation, right? So let's share. Let's rise together.
Myth that we have to dispose of is the notion that black people got to North America because Europeans brought them there. The oldest skeleton you can find in North America is an African woman. The first major migration of human beings to North America were the diminutive Africatoids, called pygmies, but diminutive Africoids who came north down the Mississippi. That's the first population of human beings, period. And then the second major migration, were the Australoids, which came from down under, say, Java, Australia,
Sumatra.
all are down there. So they came by way of Hawaii. And if you go back to the original Hawaiians, are darker than the Sudanese.
Yes.
And then they made it the way to North America. The third migration, which is the only one that I was taught in 5th grade geography, was the Mongolians, who walked across the Aleutian and the Bering Strait, following the animals on down.
Yes.
So what we call the American Indians, and again, it's because Columbus was lost and thought he was in India, why we even refer to the word as Indians. The three populations, so the Africoids commingling with the Australoids, and then when the Mongolians came, so those three gene pools. When I was growing up in the U.S., I was born in the early 50s, black people would brag about having some Indian blood in them, but it's backwards. We're all come from that first population who arrived here.
Indeed, this is powerful. And, it makes me think, again, in the history book, you would hear Christopher Columbus discovered America. The reality is that it's America who discovered Christopher Columbus, right? And I know from my lineage and ancestry that even in the 1200s, before Sundiata Keita, right? His actually uncle was gathering an army of 100 ships and boats to cross the Atlantic. That was 300 years before Columbus. Point is, yes, they never came back, but there's been historical proof on the Caribbeans and on the coast of Venezuela of the history of some of those ships would have arrived all the way there, right?
And the Olmecs and all of those.
And exactly. And then when you think of the Olmecs and all those things, clearly there's been much more. And it goes again to this quote that I've learned again from the elders that says, "Until the lion learns to write, tales of the hunt shall glorify the hunter." And we are so poor of our own history, of the knowledge of what we've accomplished as a people, of the understanding that we are one anyway. Like you said, there's no race, right? The division has been actually made.
Manufactured,
right? And if you think of Mother Africa, whether you're Chinese, right? Australian, Mongolian, Argentinian, you are her children. And some of those children just stayed there. You can't look down on them because they're actually the guardian of the temple. It makes me think of something very powerful also. And this is actually from the Hopis. And they carry that memory. They carry that memory of exactly what you described. And what they said is, at the beginning, God, and they have they would call it nature, right? Gave to the yellow and the east the mastery of air. And funny enough, breathing exercises, yoga, you find that in that part of the
Tantric, all
world.
that.
Tantra and all those things, which is linked to breathe, to the pranas and so on that you have in the air. And they gave to the Reds, which are the people in Latin America, the soil, the mastery of the soil. And people realize today with satellites air view that the Amazon actually was a garden, a very thought through garden. People speak about permaculture. They were way ahead of us, right?
Absolutely.
Right? And that's why the culture through the plant, what they have with ayahuasca, yopo, peyote, etc., what are very powerful and open that portal of communication. And then to the people of the north, the white ones, as they call them, they gave them fire. What is interesting when you talk about fire is it has a double-edged sword, right? Fire means transformation, but it also destroys. And you have the choice,
The
right?
choice is important.
And the choice is important. And to the people of the abuela, the original abuela, which is the grandmother, as they call them, the Hopis, right, which is Africa, they gave water. Guess what? Water is life. Without water, there is no life. You can survive without fire. True, you will struggle without air, but without water, forget it. And water is also that very element that is hyperconductor, that every energy that goes through gets amplified or accelerated. Water is even much deeper, is that one element that the planet has used every time it needed to reset.
It's a
The
universal.
floods. So universal, right? And if we understood that as a collective, that everybody not only has a choice about how they're going to use this particular, from food you can make poison or you can raise people. From fire you can destroy or transform. Cook meat, for instance, right? With water, you can do.
It's the universal solvent, which they teach in physics
It's
and
the
chemistry.
universal software. And people even talk about the Atlanteans, right? Who had advanced technology through crystals. Guess what? Crystal is just frozen
Yes,
water,
water.
right? So
Change
it's
state.
if water in frozen state, and that's very interesting. For me, when I hear you, is again, we don't know where we're going if we don't know where we're coming from. And what I would love to also, water is what brings balance. You measure the seasons, whether it's a rainy season, then you know you're going to have an abundance. You think of ancient Egypt. The whole calendar was
Revolving
built
around water.
about the running water, about the Nile, the floods, right? About regeneration and so on. So where, and math,
Yes, let's go back to that
let's go back
original
to that
spirituality.
original spirituality of math.
Ma'at is the ancient concept of truth, balance, order, law, morality, and justice. It's our original principles of how we're supposed to behave and how we're supposed to interact. That is another thing that all of us need to go back and study. Whether you're an African, a Chinese, or whatever, go back to study Ma'at because it's the human balance and order. The formula's made easy. We were given everything. We just got off track a little bit. And if you go back to what we were talking about with, you're talking about Columbus, the Dark Ages is what's important in terms of Europe. Bubonic plague and other diseases wiped out more than half of the population. They were in the Dark Ages. They forgot longitude. So when the Moors, the North African tribe, retaught them longitude, that's when they learned how to navigate again. So
It's interesting. When I think of math, it's only recently, so we'll come back to it with religion, like the 42 laws of math. But every time I say somebody, have you heard of math? they said mathematics, right? And then I said, then you really have heard of math, because mathematics, from an etymological point of view, right, is explaining and following the laws of math, which is balance. So when you solve an equation, when you do math, you respect the original ancient Kemetic Egyptian principles of law, order, balance, and truth when you have to resolve an equation, right? And we tend to forget that the planet we live in is based on that very simple equilibrium, and which are the fundamental laws. And we've unfortunately have tended to kind of destroy this balance
Yeah.
by first disrespecting one another as people, as one human species, right? And for me, when I see that, we were talking earlier about the people of the fire. Let's go back to one thing. Marco Polo, 12th, 13th century, something around there, goes to China to the east, right? And what he comes back with is that powder, that gunpowder. Now, again, the Europeans had a choice. Chinese used the gunpowder for celebration, for fireworks, right? And somehow, in the Dark Ages Europe, people found the idea that, oh, I can kill someone with this gunpowder. Let me make a gun out of it. Free will. Yes, you had fire. What did you do with it? Right? If you follow the laws of math, I would tell you that ancient Chinese is actually close, philosophy is actually closer in that respect. And that's why they didn't turn gunpowders into gun and all those
It
things.
has to do with maturity. The
Thank
African
you.
culture,
Maturity.
Chinese culture,
Maturity, I
Indian
repeat.
culture,
Thank you.
European culture is an adolescent culture. So the same thing in terms of their perception, or we talked earlier about the perception of royalty. Royalty in African, in at least classical African society, is around service, responsibility, and the notion of the servant leader. When the Europeans encountered African royalty, they were enamored by it, but because of their developmental point at that time in terms of being an adolescent culture, they didn't. What they took from it was not the service and responsibility; it was the entitlement and the privilege, epitomized by Marie Antoinette's "Let them eat cake." Forget about the populace; it's about me. And the opposite of Ubuntu again.
Yeah.
And you see those ancient cultures also were closer to one another in the principles and concepts that they shared.
You're so true. I found the very same concept of Ubuntu in ancient and current Indian philosophy and religion, because they would say Namaste, which says the divine in me salutes the divine in you, which is the exact very model as you found in Ubuntu. The Aztecs, the Mayas, would say Alakesh and Lakesh, which is I am me and you are you, right? And what is very interesting, I was brought up within the Western civilization, at least educated system, right? Where I was made to think that there was a supremacy, and I had to go and do my own research to say, okay, wait, Indian religion is way older than Aristotle, Plato, and those things, right? Right? The Mayas, the Aztec, and I understand when you say adolescence. I understand when you say dark ages. But that's also the point again. He who holds the pen has the power
Dictates the story.
until the lion learns to write. So how do we tell our story in this case? For instance, in the case of religion, how would you see this?
Well, as we mentioned, the principles of Ma'at found their way into all of the major Western religions. When I was in my quest for originality and authenticity, And I discovered that neither Judaism, Christianity, nor Islam introduced a single theological principle to the world that didn't already exist in another religion. They introduced personalities, but no new doctrine. So that made me go back and say, okay, what's missing? And the, what I found in the earliest object of worship that I could find for human beings is the vagina, because human beings come from heaven, and how they get to this world, how they get to earth, is through the door of the vagina. And as you're saying, when you go to Egypt, and the ankh, which is the ovum of the woman, the stamen of the man, and the two offsprings, together, that's the formula for the perpetuation of human life.
And it's called the key of life.
That's right.
That's how they called it. The ankh is the key of life, that union of the masculine that reperpetrates.
And so it was eventually, the ancestor cross is a distortion of the ankh, even though Jesus said no symbols.
The cross is a distortion of the ankh, and it's so true. And you will see also in the should we restart, Uche?
Okay.
So you're right. When you look at the ankh, the cross is but somehow it has eliminated the feminine.
That's right.
Right?
Feminine.
Eliminated the feminine, and you will see in Christianity, in Catholicism, it's priest, not priestesses.
Even though it was taken out by the Romans.
Exactly.
It was even in Christianity, in early Christianity.
Yes.
Mary and all of them.
Yes, exactly.
But it was
Mary,
taken out.
Magdalene, and so on. And what is very powerful here is that, like you say, before, and you have in Africa this strong heritage of matriarchal societies, right? Even in the places like Ghana, in some tribes, you don't have kings, you have queens. Mm-hmm. And even the Ashantis themselves, your right to be king come from your mother of your aunt and her bloodline, right? Somehow it has been kind of distorted. And you're right, when you see, and I took the Ubuntu Tribe team to Egypt, you would have Hathor holding Horus because she's the one empowering him. And in ancient history, first you had goddesses. Why? Because to have a god, somehow you need a goddess first, right? And also because within those cultures, and I can see even on my ancestry, the woman was that magic portal between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And in that sense, she would be elevated out of respect because they would do some magic that no man could do. Mm-hmm. And over time, somehow, we got lost along the way.
It was a long time before there was a male deity.
Yes.
A long time. I don't know, couple thousand, long time. And the first male deity that I could find was Ptah, P-T-A-H. And there's the book of Ptahhotep. And in this book, which is, it is the oldest book in the world, I have a copy of it. You can find it probably on Amazon or something. The book of Ptahhotep. And you recall out of that the eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Yes.
As one of the coinages that we hold from that. But exactly what you're saying, the disempowerment or the lack of recognition of the power of the female because of the fear of the power of women.
Yes.
That came up, like say, when the Greeks were not the ones who really claimed that they started that. It was the Romans who couldn't accept the idea that Africa was, black, and epitomized by Napoleon trying to blow the nose off the Sphinx.
Of the Sphinx.
To prove, the proof that, we were here.
Yeah.
So your point.
And, what is very also interesting, right, within that concept is the principle of taking back ownership, right? The beauty of wisdom, unlike, although we've cracked it, but technically, wisdom is the one thing that can be multiplied. by just sharing it. And it's free to share it. But as you share it, you create more wealth. Can you fathom that? And that's something when I hear you talking, right? This point about don't gain the world and
And
lose
lose
your
your soul.
soul. Wisdom is better than silver and gold. And as much as we tokenize gold and fractionalize ownership, there's only so much you can fractionalize. But wisdom, once you share it, it's a very unique form of wealth
It magnifies
that
itself.
magnifies itself and enriches you for sharing it because you feel honored and you are honored for sharing. And that's the part for me, this which is probably the responsibility of our generation when we sit with elders like you who have seen so much. How, in the context of socialism, there was this mindset about actually, as they say, sharing is caring until somehow it
Yeah.
got distorted.
Sharing societies
Yes.
is the original mode of commerce for human beings. And as we said before, without socialism, or what they call socialism, sharing societies, we wouldn't be here arguing about the benefits or detriments of capitalism and all this other stuff. The original mode of commerce for human beings was barter trade. You grow corn, I make shoes. Make my family some shoes, I'll give you a bushel of corn. Simple
Barter. Yeah.
barter trade. Now, when we get up to people like Karl Marx and introduction of dialectic materialism and all this confusion, diluting what is something very simple, and then when the Cold War, which is 1950s and 60s, the United States, with their massive media propaganda power, began to demonize the idea of social sharing societies because of, again, going back to that value system and the notion of scarcity. So that's my.
And what is interesting today is that our civilization is at a crossroad for me,
Absolutely.
right? Because you have all this expansion of AI or blockchain, and everything goes very fast, and everything is, and people are questioning also. And you could see COVID forces us as a species, as humans, to pause and reflect. But what it really is leading to is that you have a crisis. You have a model crisis. Because, yes, you can accumulate as many material goods as you want. But when enough is enough? And is it really the goal? Where, like they say, you're chasing the paper and then you realize, God damn, it's only paper, right? And then you empty inside. And that model of scarcity is facing its limits today because it's distorting, dividing, and antagonizing societies that are calling for people to look for something else. And that's also, funny enough, it coincided with this need that I have, that my team, that you have, to say, actually, where do we come from? Who are we? And what do we want? And the rise of Ubuntu in that sense, that says, I'm actually not poorer by sharing,
Absolutely, Richard.
right?
So let's go back to AI.
Yeah.
AI, to me, originally is African influence.
Oh,
Artificial intelligence comes later. We start with African influence. And, people say, AI is going to take my job. Well, no, AI is not going to take any job. Somebody who knows AI might take your job. But going back to COVID and the fact that Earth is one organism. And in the same way, you go down and you look at your blood, when microscope, it's a bunch, we are a macroorganism ourselves with a mini cosmos inside.
indeed.
And
As within, so without.
yes,
As above, so below.
so as an organism, if you get, say, an itch and you scratch it, if that doesn't work, you escalate, maybe to a salve or something like that. So now when COVID was going, I had asked somebody, I wonder if the Earth realizes it's infested with an organism called a human being that has the
Who's the
capacity
parasite
that
here?
has the capacity to destroy the entire planet.
Who's the
And
parasite
if
here?
so, is it doing something about it?
Yeah.
And if you recall, when COVID shut everybody down, the Earth cleaned up. The
Yeah.
skies got better. The
Yeah.
ocean
The
got
rivers got
keeping us
cleaner.
at home helped every species on the planet.
Yes, indeed.
Because, as you said, we introduced imbalance,
Yeah.
disharmony, because of a mental value system.
And that's the point of what really we're trying to do at Ubuntu. It's a mindset shift, right? We by democratizing access to gold and precious metals and those actual goods, assets, right? And making available to all, we're reintroducing the principle that we need to shift from a scarcity economy to an abundance mindset.
Absolutely. That's the phrase that we need on T-shirts and
Yeah,
everything. That thought transition, for sure.
indeed.
Because when you're talking about gold, and we were talking earlier about the fact that we talked we talked earlier about the fact that in the United States, the government actually outlawed the possession of gold and the trading of gold by citizens,
Yeah,
which is a demonic notion. It's like it's criminalized. No U.S. citizen. This was a law passed in 1971 in the United States. No U.S. citizen could possess or trade gold anywhere in the world. If you think about that, it's like, who has the authority? How dare you defy godliness with that type of restriction? And so in the beginning of the U.S., they were using coins, primarily Mexican silver dollars, French coinage, and some other things before they came up with fiat. Now the dollar started, I believe, in early 1500s. Called Joachim Thaler, Thaler. That was the first so-called dollar, and that was in the kingdom of Bohemia, what was then became Czechoslovakia, and then Czech split and Chechnya and all that kind of stuff. But that's where that idea of the dollar came from. But now we're centuries later. You talked earlier about in 1933 the banking reset in the United States. After this holiday, they closed down all the banks in the United States, and during that time, they went behind doors and came up with this fiat thing, and printing of paper to represent the dollar, like you were talking about the other day.
yeah, and what you call the dollar exorbitant privilege today, when after the Second World War, dollar was declared $1 is 35 ounce of gold, right? And 40, not even 30 years later, to hear President Nixon say, actually, no, the dollar is worth whatever it's worth and doesn't need to be backed by gold anymore. And which means from now on, we can print as much as we want, and you're just going to have to take it, right? Which is all the more interesting that in the early 2000s, the dollar was 78%. I mean, 78% of global trade was done in dollar. Now you're at 54%, right? And it keeps on going down. And it brings me back, to this point where, as an African or as a African leader, or even South Asian or Argentinian for the matter, if I start printing as much as I want, guess what I'm going to be dealing with? Hyperinflation, right? Meaning my economy goes to zero. But when you can print and everybody takes it, then they absorb. Now, it makes me just to finish on this point, which is we sit on 48% of the global gold deposit, 70% of the platinum, 68% of the cobalt, and you name it. And again, that's what we've found, but there's more that we haven't found. So the percentages might even be bigger. And it takes me back to the point where all those assets have skyrocketed, but yet we venerate the paper,
And we're
right?
still on paper.
And to this thing is like, let's go fast backward, and which is what I mentioned the other day, right? You have the colonizer who arrives. He's got this beautiful mirror, right? And then calls the people of the village and the chief and say, we got this technology for you, right? And everybody starts looking at themselves in the mirror in awe about this beautiful, fantastic thing, and it's themselves on the other side, right? And then colonizers say, you want it? Chief will say, yes, of course I want it. Okay, give me something. Give me some gold, for instance, right? And then colonizer takes the gold. You keep the mirror. Fast forward 300-400 years later, what happens is, okay, we still give the gold, but we don't take the mirror, we take the paper that we could print ourselves if we wanted, right? And somehow things haven't changed. And for me, it was critical to kind of restore through technology and for Ubuntu Tribe, put value where it's due, to disintermediate, and for people to ultimately see that tokenized gold, tokenized silver has value. Your Naira, CD, Kenyan shillings, dinar, South African rand, outside of your border, nobody wants it. But your gold, your silver, your platinum, wherever you go in the world, everybody will take it. So why waste time? Just tokenize it.
If you go back to COVID, during COVID, the United States printed up another $1 trillion, backed by nothing. And I was on a conference one time. It was the Minister of Finance from Nigeria, the head of state, 4 or 5 countries, ministers of finance, ministers of health, and the executive. And so the woman who's Minister of Finance from Nigeria said, hey, United States, because they have a Federal Reserve, they can just print something with nothing to back it to create liquidity. How we're going to create liquidity is we're not servicing your national debt. So it's you're not getting whatever you think. It's an odious debt in the first place, meaning a criminal debt to begin with. But we're not paying it. That's how we're going to, So they were clever in creating ways to create liquidity to help the populace. But going back to this notion of the earth protecting itself from us, and if we keep misbehaving, the earth might accelerate its treatment protocol. So there's a sense of urgency that we need to come to regain our minds before it's too late. And the earth says, hey, we've had enough of this virus that's infected us.
Yeah, no, this is deep, and people were. I mean, you've been there yourself, right? It's never easy to pioneer something that challenges a status quo, right? You were one of the first person in America to own radio stations, and you were at the time an executive with Dell, the computer company, and you tried and you actually got successful at it. But how hard was it? Tell us a bit that journey.
Well, I wasn't the first. I had, as we all stand on powerful shoulders.
Yeah, I could stand those far because I could see those far because I stood on the shoulders of giants.
I've had the good fortune to have some incredible mentors in a number of arenas. The first being my grandmother's big sister, who was the first black woman to receive a PhD from Texas, and maybe the third in the United States or so. And she built a school in 1919 called Center Point. And it took me a while to understand what center point meant that we discussed, the causal nexus, the essence of beginning. And so I would spend the summers with her, and she had an incredible library. Okay. We had an incredible library where we talked about the consciousness of fire, which nobody else in my environment talked about. But my mentor in radio was a gentleman named Magnificent Montague. He's famous for the phrase "burn, baby, burn." He was a disc jockey in New York initially. He was the #1 disc jockey in America. He would call the radio station, "Hey, I want to hear James Brown, I'm Black and I'm Proud, burn, baby, burn." And then he moved from there to Chicago, #1 there, still burn, baby, burn. And then when I was growing up in the 60s in Los Angeles at radio station KGFJ, he was there with Burn Baby Burn. In 1967, the rebellion, the Watts Rebellion, the police called the radio station, asked him to stop saying Burn Baby Burn. And he's saying, this is my brand. I've been doing this. It has nothing to do with what's going on now. Not only did he not stop, he escalated to Burn Los Angeles Burn. And so he was quietly banned from radio, and he turned to collecting African-American memorabilia and then putting regular people in the radio stations. So one day he came to me and said, "Hey, if you think you're interested in being in radio, forget what you think you know or not. Let me walk you through the process." So I spent the next year studying, going and hang out with some of his friends who owned stations. And then in 2000, I bought 4 terrestrial radio stations, including America's oldest country western station. And in 2007, I was named Texas Broadcaster of the Year. But what's important now, we need a unifying communication mode, a vehicle, a tool for all of us. And that's where you and I and others can get together and create that platform. We need our own CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC.
And when I hear you, I know they made your life hard. You even had the KKK coming at you at the time because they couldn't stand the idea of a black man owning radio stations, right? And indeed, it's tough when you effectively try and make a difference and be a voice for your generation or your community in a system that gets challenged. And just to close, you now are the bridge, right? You get intronized. You got intronized, from kingship out of Southern Africa, and it's a model also for a lot of our people back, on the other side of the Atlantic, right? African American who've been looking down upon Africa to also see their own coming back to the motherland, rising, right? And also becoming a voice and a bridge, right? And things like that, the only version we had would have been Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, right?
So this is the opposite.
This is the opposite, right? And this is very powerful. And when you were talking about that particular element, I hear often, when we started this gold tokenization, so many people try to discourage me and say, "Man, you're crazy, right? Look at what they did to Gaddafi. Look at Lumumba, they killed him. Look at Luther King. Look at Malcolm X. What are you?"
But we are protected by the universe.
Exactly. And my answer to this is this quote from Victor Hugo that says, "Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come."
Absolutely. I was shot in the heart 5 times. I got up and walked away with no surgery. I still have 5 in my heart, 4 in my lung, 1 in my eye.
What?
Ancestors are making sure that I don't leave until I accomplish my mission. So I'd like to close this session. We have a whole lot more to talk about next time, but I'd like to close this session with reciting the poem Africa Rising.
Please.
Pulsing with the vibrance of original human life, a nurturing mother to all, sleeping giant, awakening in the dawn, O Africa rising, brewing in the depths of ancient human experience, a reservoir of wisdom for all, an ailing planet awaits your merciful morn, O Africa rising, 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 Africa rising, rising to bring new life to the world, simmering with hope for a brighter future to see, Tomorrow becomes today. Sleeping giant awake at millennium dawn. Oh, Africa rising, 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 Africa rising, rising to give new life to the world. Ngoju, Asante Sana. Thank you.
Together we rise. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. Together we rise. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and an honor to have you. And
let me give you a mudra. You know what
please.
mudra is? It's a spiritual movement. May kindness heal the land. May kindness heal the land. May kindness heal